Welcome to this video. This is a review of the Raspberry Pi 4 with 8 GB of RAM. I've already created a video using this Raspberry Pi and showing some typical scenarios and running and seeing how much memory got used up, and I really didn't touch the amount of memory on it at all. I've had some feedback and some comments on my videos and my social media, and it seems like people might like to see a power user type role and really trying to push the Raspberry Pi to its limits. So I've taken some of the advice, some of the suggestions that people have put in, and I'm going to really just ramp this up. I'm going to launch lots of applications and see what I can do. So there's not much running at the moment. I've got Simple Screen Recorder, which is used to record the screen so you can get to see it. I've got a VNC running in the background, but it's not actually doing anything. And I'm going to start with htop to monitor the amount of memory being used. Let's bring that onto the screen so you can see it. There's other tools that can show memory usage. I just like htop because it gives this graphical display. So it does display lots of other things about processors running, uptime, and the process utilization, but really it's just the memory part we're interested in. And as you can see, we're running at 720 megabytes so far. Put this always on top. Hopefully that will keep displaying that, and you'll be able to keep track of that while I'm running the other applications. So I'm going to start trying to think of using power user type scenarios, but I'm going to really launch lots of applications that you probably wouldn't normally launch at the same time. We'll start with Chromium Web Browser. So we'll launch of my own websites. There's penguintutor.com, there's my own personal website. I'll log into Gmail, so I might need to blur some of this because I don't want to give out my email addresses necessarily. Let's have some Facebook. These are already logged in, so they should just come up, and they'll obviously be launching all the code in it, the scripts and the things that are running. So see, we've got it up to 1 GB of memory so far. So obviously if we've got the older 1 GB Raspberry Pi 4, then it would be starting to struggle by now. Slightly, because it would start swapping, but 8 GB, we've still a long way to go. So one of the suggestions I got, and I think was through Twitter, was Office, Microsoft Office 365. So I'm going to launch this, and I'm going to launch all the different applications. In individual tabs. The only one I won't is Teams, because I don't really want to be having Teams pop-ups while I'm recording this video. So see, there's quite a lot running there, so just check the memory. So my processor's maxed out at the moment just in launching all these, and the memory still a long way to go. We're at 1.71 gigabytes of memory, so still plenty of scope. So let's also launch YouTube. and I'll set it running. I won't use one of these that might have misspelt. Oh, fortunately, even though I've misspelt it, it still found my own channel. So my Penguin Tutor channel, and let's find the previous one, and I'll just set that running. Let's pause it straight away. The audio coming out. So YouTube as well has loaded a video, and still 1.6 gig of memory, so still quite comfortable. So let's imagine you've got something that you want to run on a different web browser. Let's launch Firefox as well. Maybe because you're a web developer, you want to test on multiple browsers, or perhaps there is an application that doesn't really work well. So just launching, just come straight into the BBC website. I was looking at that previously. So 1.8 gigs, so we've still got plenty to go. Now I'm going to start a text editor. So there are several text editors that come with the Raspberry Pi OS. I'm going to launch JEdit. This is one of my personal favorites. It's just one I'm quite familiar with. I've used it for a long time, and because it works across different platforms, it gives me that familiarity across the different platforms. It is a Java application, so it's going to launch the Java virtual machine. So expecting a bit of memory usage, but not a huge amount. I'm going to start launching. So imagine we're doing a bit of Java editing. I'm going to launch BlueJ. Also noticed Eclipse is installed. Eclipse won't actually run for some reason. I decided for this video I want to just stick with applications that are very easily installed, ones that you normally use on a Raspberry Pi, or ones that you can install using either apt install or through a simple install file or something like that. So we've launched that, done a bit of a BlueJ. I was actually meant to launch the while I was talking about web development, Bluefish, which is the web developing tool. We've got that running as well. So we've gone over 2 gigabytes of memory. So if you got the basic Raspberry Pi 4 as is on sale at the moment, which is June 2020, then that would be starting to hit the swap now and slow down performance wise. But we've still got a long way to go before we hit that. So let's just imagine you're wanting to do a bit of some electronics. So let's launch Fritzin. So the Fritzin's a nice tool for creating breadboards and electronic circuits and even PCBs. So I used that certainly to create some PCBs in the past, and I've referred to that in my first book on electronics with the Raspberry Pi. Take a long time to load, but while it's loading, let's start up another one as well, KiCad. So that one just launches straight away. Still not seeing much. We're still hovering around the 2 gigabytes of memory. So obviously this is Fritzin loading the parts, the sketches. can see the memory going up certainly, but okay. And just start throwing a few things around and not seeing huge amounts of memory. And let's launch the new Python IDE. And on here already let's load need to okay, so this is a game that I wrote in Pygame 0. Need to install so this is available. Yeah, this is available as a Debian package. So Mu really needs it to be in its own directory, so let me try. In fact, it's probably because I realised I got the mode wrong, so I probably could have launched it from there, but okay, so let's start. So my game's going to load in and run in, so just 2.25 gigabytes used, and let's launch Scratch as well. Use Scratch 3. So Scratch 3 is the current version, which is probably the most resource hungry version of Scratch. So we're still hitting around 2.5 gigabytes. So let's launch some Office applications. So although we've already loaded the Microsoft ones online, let's imagine we want to do something locally. Do Writer, Impress. So LibreOffice Writer is the word processor. Impress is presentation. Calc is a spreadsheet, and there's also database as well. So most of these I'm going to leave. In fact, this should be drawing package as well. That's what I was looking for there, LibreOffice Draw. So most of these I'm just going to leave empty, but I will load a document into here. Quite a reasonable size document. I should have some. There we go. There's this is it's in Word format, so it's going to have to translate that, but it's a chapter out of my latest book on Pygame 0. So this has got a document loaded, just because I know before I didn't actually load any applications, load any data, it was just loading the documents. Still less than 3 gigabytes, although we're still launching some applications. The calc has just come up on a different window for some reason. My other screen, we'll just finish that. And still got lots of memory left, and I'm running a lot more than I would typically run in a session myself. I've got there's a LibreOffice draw file. So I mean, with all these Office applications, we're still a long way off using all the memory. But let's imagine we want to perhaps take a little bit of a break. Let's play a game. Let's launch Minecraft. Minecraft Pi is probably the most resource intensive game on here. Create a new world. Go. So we're still at a little over 3 gigabytes of memory in use, so 3.25 gigabytes here. Don't worry, I've still got plenty of applications to keep launching, so we'll keep going and see how far we can get. But bear in mind that the target here is to see, is it worth getting an 8 gigabyte here, or one of the reasons, is it worth getting the 8 gigabyte versions rather than the 4 gigabyte versions. So if you would be happy running just those applications all at the same time, then the 4 gigabyte is probably enough for you. But go on, this is a real power user, so let's up the ante a bit with some graphics. Let's load GIMP. So the GIMP's a image manipulation program, similar to Photoshop. I think I've probably got some images I can load here. There's an image off my website, so that's not particularly high resolution, but there's a photo. And now with all this loaded, we're still 3.35 gigabytes. So let's try OpenShot Video Editor. So I did try this before. It's usable. I'm only going to load standard HD files on here. I'm not going to look at 4K because realistically I wouldn't be looking at editing 4K on a Raspberry Pi anyway. So we can let me launch a file manager. I've got some videos. And the downloads is a rather big video. The entire video from my previous video on using the RAM up. There we go. That's it. We can load that on there as well. So we're still looking at less than 4 gigabytes. Also suggested KDN Live, another editor. Why somebody would want to run 2 video editors at the same time, I don't know, but here we go. This is the power user review. So well, since I've used this KDN Live project, click, there we go. There we go, so it's loaded a file as well. Drag it onto the timeline. So although I haven't set it rendering, it's still loaded, and we're still looking at less than 4 gigabytes. Maybe wanted to replay some of those videos. Let's open one of these in VLC Media Player. So we can play that. It doesn't seem to like my audio. I've got a headset plugged in which is just playing up a bit. But so this is actually the video running. This is my testing before. So we've got the video playing in the background. Just go. So if I just, I'll just pause that. So it's still loaded, still using up memory. I just paused it. So just about hitting 4 gigabytes here. So at this point is where the 4 gigabyte version of the Raspberry Pi is still sufficient, and anything we launch now is going to be making use of the extra memory. If it was on the 4 gigabyte version, it would be starting to swap. So we've got a few other applications that I might want to run. I said it wouldn't have all these running at the same time, but we are pushing it here. So Inkscape, a vector drawing application. Let's let's run Blender. It should be under graphics. As you can see, none of these applications on their own need huge amounts of memory. It's only the fact that we're launching all these and at the same time Blender's actually opened in a different window, so I've got a few samples, so if we can open that one. So that's with a sample file loaded. We're still only just over 4 gigabytes. Let's imagine we want to then slice that, ready for 3D printing. Cura doesn't run on here. Probably could be with a bit of coaxing, but it seems to hit an error. We'll show that. But so instead of I've installed another slicer, which is called Slicer appropriately. This is Slicer that's opened. Cura's there. I think Cura's not actually going to load. If you go to their website, then you can only get the binaries for x86. Yeah, and so that's the one that was on Debian, which doesn't actually work. I don't think I've got any STL files here, so I won't actually load them, but see, we're still looking at 2.3 gigabytes of memory in use. So here's another one that's can use make human. Let's try that. I'm just going to deliberately position that in front. So make human, it's a program I've only really just started using. It's to be able to create humanoid figures. So I'm looking at using these to make perhaps 3D models of people. Now make human does create anatomical models, and therefore in the default it does show nudity, and this is just wireframe at the moment. I'll just be hiding that out. So as you can see, we've got up to 4.6 gigabytes at the moment. I'm just going to minimize that. I might well do a tutorial on that in future. It's something I'm really looking into at the moment. 4.6. So have we got anything else? So I did want to use OpenSSH, and I've just realised I don't think that's installed, so we can quickly install that. So there are a few Looks like the library is available, but not OpenSSH itself. So in a previous video I did try FreeCAD, but that won't run on the Raspberry Pi. It seems to be a problem with the OpenGL libraries. So let's see if we can manage with this. So I've certainly run OpenSSH on the Raspberry Pi in the past, but I can't seem to show what's happened there. Anyway, so we could use Mathematica and maybe Wolfram, some mathematical engines. Hopefully they should use quite a bit of memory, but and really I've just reached the point where I'm just trying to launch applications just to try and fill all this memory up. I've already exceeded the goal of 4 gigabytes. I've shown the amount of applications you would need to go, and just see to go as far as I can get. The Wolfram's loaded. Let's just try launching. what I can try and do is, I've got quite a large PDF file. So if I try launching this PDF file, get rid of some of these windows first. As you can see, I mean, the amount of applications I'm able to launch on this is absolutely crazy, really. I mean, pretty much there it is. I've launched just about everything I could think of. There's a okay, we could have a calculator. We could launch a couple of other things, but really I'm really just randomly clicking things and launched as much as I can, and I've got to just over 6 gigabytes of memory in use. Actually, it started using the swap file, so there we go. Not sure why I need to use the swap file when there's still over a gig free, but it has started swapping things out of memory. But there we are. So power user, I've really just launched everything I can. As you can look, the number of icons on the launch bar is just crazy. And there you go. So I think I still stand by what I said previously. For a typical desktop user, 4 gigabytes is more than enough. If you are a power user, then even 4 gigabytes is going to be enough for most. Really going to have to be pushing it to be able to make use of those 8 gigabytes. Now there are some other instances where it may be useful, particularly the Magpie this month has run some articles on server-based situations, and yeah, I do agree with those, but specifically here I was looking at the desktop user really rather than server-based. And even then, if server-based, it obviously depends on what sort of load. I run a server in my home, and there's no way it would be using this amount of memory, even if I try and give it plenty of cache and things like that. So for the typical user, I think it's an overkill at the moment, but that's not to say there won't be anything that does need that. And particular, thinking about if we move to 64-bit using Ubuntu and using the full GNOME desktop, which one of the great things about the Raspberry Pi is it's got a very light desktop, which is good because you don't need that powerful a computer or that much memory, and your computer's really responsive. But a full fat desktop like the GNOME desktop on Ubuntu 64-bit may may push that over, so it might be worth having a go at that. So I might have a look at that. If you'd like to see that, then do let me know through the comments, and please subscribe to my channel to find out more about Raspberry Pi and various maker videos that I'm making, both on hardware, software, and on things like Arduino as well. Okay, thanks for watching, and bye for now.